I'm going to highlight Switzerland in this next piece before we have a music break for the final portion of tonight's show. Because Switzerland kind of gets left out of many things. It's a bit like Holland. I may do a piece on Holland as well, on their role in world history. Because it's all hidden behind the mask and the finger-pointing blame towards other countries. But Switzerland is a landlocked country bordered by Italy to the south, France to the west, Germany to the north, and Austria and Liechtenstein to the east, and is geographically divided between the Alps, the Swiss Plateau and the Jura, and is dominated by the Alps, which is home of the Dorsey beings, little green gremlins, nasty. The largest cities are located, among them the two most global cities and economic centres of Zurich and Geneva, and its national flag is symbolism in and of itself. Red background and a white cross, which is a reverse of the previous white background and a red cross. You'll find out why later. The establishment of the old Swiss Confederacy dates back to the late medieval period, resulting from a series of military successes against Austria and Burgundy, and Swiss independence from the Holy Roman Empire was formally recognised in the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. Now, since the Reformation of the 16th century, Switzerland has maintained a strong policy of armed neutrality and has not fought an international war since 1815 and did not join the United Nations until 2002. Well, Switzerland is the birthplace of the Red Cross, one of the world's oldest and best known alleged humanitarian organisations. Yeah, right. But it's also home to numerous international organisations, including the second largest UN office. It is a founding member of the European Free Trade Association, but notably not part of the European Union, the European Economic Area, or the Eurozone. However, it participates in the Schengen area and the European single market through bilateral treaties, which they are no longer allowed to do. Switzerland is one of the most developed countries in the world, with the highest nominal wealth per adult and the 8th highest per capita gross domestic product. The entire region became part of the expanding Frankish Empire in the 6th century, following Clovis I's victory over Alemanni at Tolbiac in 504 AD, and the later Frankish domination of the Burgundians. Now, throughout the rest of the 6th, 7th and 8th centuries, the Swiss regions continued under the Frankish hegemony via the Merovingian and Carolingian dynasties, neither of which were good. Neither of them. By the 1200s, the Swiss plateau comprised the dominions of the houses of Savoy, Zähringen, the Habsburgs and Kyburg, and some regions, Uri, Schwyz, Unterwalden, later known as Waldstatten, were accorded the imperial immediacy, declared free, to grant the empire direct control over the mountain passes. So in other words, the Swiss were completely cut off from everybody else. With the extinction of its male line in 1263, the Kyburg dynasty fell in 1264 AD, and then the Habsburgs, no surprise there, linked with the Rothschilds and also relatives of Anna von Reitz, under King Rudolf, the First Holy Roman Empire back in 1273. The Habsburgs then laid claim to the Kyberg lands and annexed them, extending their territory to the eastern Swiss plateau. You see how it all goes on. They just harvest and harvest and harvest. But when war broke out between France and its rivals Russia and Austria, forces invaded Switzerland. The Swiss refused to fight alongside the French in the name of the Helvetic Republic, and in 1803 Napoleon organised a meeting of leading Swiss politicians from both sides in Paris, and the result was the Act of Mediation, which largely, yet again, restored Swiss autonomy and introduced a confederation of 19 cantons. Cantons apparently means regions of autonomy. I thought it was talking about the Rothschilds, because they are total cantons, if you ask me. And in 1815, the Congress of Vienna, for those who don't know, the Congress of Vienna established the United States. 1815. The United States is nothing to do with America. It was the United States of Europe. And in 1815, apart from establishing the term United States, it fully re-established Swiss independence, and the European powers agreed to permanently recognise Swiss neutrality. And a system of single weights and measures was introduced, and in 1850 the Swiss franc became the Swiss single currency. Why is it called franc? Because it's relating back to the French and the Frankish dynasty. That's where that term comes from. Switzerland was not invaded during either of the World Wars. During World War I, Switzerland was home to Vladimir Lenin, and he remained there until 1917. Guess who assisted him to return him back to Russia? The Germans. Oops. Does that make any sense? Or was the two programmes running, as I've suggested in From Russia with Love series? But this neutral, what this really means, neutral means protecting Israelite-created communist programmes members who genocided the whole country. And Swiss neutrality was seriously questioned back in 1917 in the Grimm-Hoffmann affair, but it was short-lived. And in 1920, Switzerland joined the League of Nations, which was a precursor of the United Nations, which was also based in Switzerland, in Geneva, and on condition that it was exempt from any military requirements. Common theme. Now, during World War II, Switzerland was able to remain independent through a combination of military deterrence, concessions to Germany, and over the course of the war, Switzerland interned over 300,000 refugees, and the International Red Cross, based in Geneva, played an important part during that conflict. Yes, indeed. But he took everything off the people and put them in camps. Strict immigration and asylum policies, as well as the financial relationships with Nazi Germany, raised much controversy against the Swiss, but not until the end of the 20th century. Allied forces who had bombed part of Switzerland explained the bombings, which violated the 96th Article of War and resulted from, they stated, navigational errors, equipment failure, weather conditions, and errors made by bomber pilots. It sounds like the NATO US troops in Romania, does it not? It's just trot out the same excuses over and again. American people are not going to like this next paragraph. The Swiss expressed fear and concern that the bombings were intended to put pressure on Switzerland to end its economic cooperation with and neutrality with the Nazis in Germany. In other words, they were working with them. So much for being neutral. Then there was court-martial proceedings that took place in England to do with these bombings. And the US government paid $63 million in Swiss francs for reparations of the bombings. Why is it always Americans that have to pay for this shit? $63 million in the 1940s, and you wonder why we never have any money or we're always in debt. After the war, the Swiss government exported credits through the charitable fund known as Switzer Spend, and also donated to the Marshall Plan. Oh my. The Marshall Plan is that document of the control system. Which was alleged to help Europe's recovery and efforts that ultimately benefited the Swiss economy. Now, Switzerland was the last Western republic to grant women the right to vote, and in 2002 Switzerland became a full member of the United Nations, leaving the Vatican City as the last widely recognised state without full UN membership. Now, large numbers of international institutions have their seats in Switzerland, in part because of its policy of neutrality. Yeah, right. And Geneva is the birthplace of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent movement and the Geneva Conventions, and since 2006 hosts the United Nations Human Rights Council. And even though Switzerland is one of the most recent countries to have joined the United Nations, the Palace of Nations is also in Geneva, the second biggest centre for the UN after New York, and Switzerland was a founding member and home of the previous one, the League of Nations. So apart from the United Nations headquarters, the Swiss Confederation is host to many of the UN agencies, like the World Horror Organization, or World Health, which is a load of bollocks, World Horror Organization, the International Labour Organization, the International Telecommunications Union, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and about 200 other international organisations, including the World Trade Organization and the World Intellectual Property Organization, all held in Switzerland. Now, the annual meetings of the World Economic Forum is also in Switzerland, in Davos, bringing together top international snake oil salesmen and political leaders from Switzerland and foreign countries to discuss important issues facing the world, including health and the environment. And they don't discuss much of it because none of it's been improved. Additionally, the headquarters of the Bank of International Settlements are also located in Switzerland, in Basel, since 1930. And furthermore, many of the sport federations and organisations are also located throughout the country, such as the International Basketball Federation in Geneva, the Union of European Football Association, UEFA, and the International Federation of Association Football, FIFA, and the International Ice Hockey Federation in Zurich, the International Cycling Union, and the International Olympic Committee in Lausanne. And Switzerland is home to several large multinational corporations, and the largest Swiss companies by revenue are Glencore, Gunvor, Nestlé, Novartis, Hoffmann La Roche, AB&B, Mercura Energy Group and Adecco. Also notable are UBS AG, Zurich Financial Services, Credit Suisse, Barry Callebaut, Swiss Re, Tetra Pak, the Swatch Group and the Swiss International Airlines. Now, Switzerland is ranked as having one of the most powerful economies in the world. Not surprised. And since 2000, the Armed Force Department has also maintained the Onyx intelligence gathering system to monitor satellite communications. So they're also the major spy centre. So much for neutrality. Now, the main sources of income for the federal government is sales tax, or VAT for Europe, 33%, and a direct federal tax of 29%. Also in Switzerland, in Geneva and the nearby French department of Ain, co-hosts the world's largest laboratory, CERN, dedicated to particle physics research, or so they say anyway. Either way, that failed also. And another important research centre is the Paul Scherrer Institute. Notable inventions out of there include lysergic acid dithalidomide, which is LSD. The red pill chunks of the alt media talk of, not realising LSD is an MK Ultra mind control drug. Oops. Other was diazepam, came from Switzerland also. And I wouldn't describe them as notable, more like genocidal to me. Switzerland has no official state religion, although most of the cantons except Geneva and Neuchâtel recognise official churches, which are either the Roman Catholic Church or the Swiss Reformed Church. These churches, and in some cantons also the Old Catholic Church and Jewish congregations, are financed by official taxation of adherents. Yeah. So that's the history of Switzerland. A history of neutrality, which is actually a cover for we do what we like in here and we impose rules, statutes and regulations on everyone else. Just like the City of London, Vatican City and the District of Columbia. Neutral in world wars was, for a start, fake. They were helping and funding the Nazis in both of them, as well as protecting the protectorate of the Rothschilds who were stationed in that country. Heavily linked with the Roman Church, despite publicly not declaring, in fact. But who are the armed forces protecting the Vatican? The Swiss Guards. That's not being neutral, is it? And quietly they have collected and housed most of the world governing or controlling bodies, be it the UN, World Health, Bank of International Settlements, Credit Suisse, who are major financial players in financial skullduggery. And given sport is one of the main money makers now, it's no surprise FIFA, UEFA and the Olympic headquarters are situated there either. But it wasn't the only thing they collected. It was they who stored and then claimed large portions of the Nazi loot, artefacts, gold, priceless art pieces, and likely the famous Amber Room also. Remember, during the war, the Rothschilds who run and control Switzerland, which means land of ISIS, funds all sides in the war and so collects the bounty. Then we have CERN, the major clown escape machine, now said to be the home of Libra, Yes, Libra is going to be housed in Switzerland. Which, apart from collapsing the old system of banking, like their flag representing the Red Cross, also housed in Switzerland, and a representation of the old Templars who created usury banking, let us not forget. And you see why Switzerland largely remains hidden from records, researchers and historians. This is a country who have banged on about neutrality for close to 1400 years. What makes that region so special for a certain group of people to continue that line to the modern day? Who or what are they hiding? Why is that country overlooked in so many aspects, yet house so many governing and controlling bodies? Well, the curtain just got pulled back a bit on this piece of real estate that operates under a cloud of illusion. The history is formulated by the cult of Ra and the Egyptian symbolism, which is completed with the role of the Templars, carried on by the sister organisation of them, the Red Cross. We'll be back shortly. This is Dio and Egypt. The chains are on.